honored to be here with you guys. And I know how precious your time is, everybody. So I want to honor that. And I hope to offer you a few mind-blowing moments about pain, as well as give you some practical tools that you can take into your own experience, because we all at some point experience pain in our lives, but also that you can take forward into your teaching, right? It's in your teacher toolbox. So let's get going with my slides here. All right, I don't see, there we go, cool beans. All right, you guys, so I did title this presentation, this webinar, The Science of Pain, Less Fear, More Hope. So that's really my heart's desire, is to reduce the fear and increase your hope on this topic. A little bit about me. I'm a wife, a mom of 2 teenage boys, so prayers are appreciated. I live in Colorado, the foothills. And like Lizzie said, I'm a co-owner of For the Soul Yoga, a lead trainer for Living Soul Institute, which is a teacher training organization. I am a persistent pain experiencer myself. So I bring a lot of personal experience, a lot of personal passion into this topic. And all those things that Lizzie had mentioned. I've been in this movement industry. I was thinking about it this morning, about maybe 25 years. That dates me a little bit, but I started with step aerobics. And so some of you may not even know what that is, but I've been in this field for quite a while. And so I want to just mention, as a human, I've developed a sense of empowerment as I've learned more and more about this topic in my own pain experience. About 15 years ago, I was diagnosed with Lyme, which tends to involve quite a bit of pain. And so I've also, of course, dealt with just the things that happen with an active lifestyle, right? A cracked calcaneus. 7 weeks ago, I ruptured the tendons in my pinky. So life brings us lots of learning opportunities and boo-boos along the way. But my education's allowed me to trust in my body that I can heal, that I have resilience. And that's really one of the things that I hope to encourage you with today. And as a yoga instructor and a lead trainer, I am more confident to walk alongside others. So as I'm teaching and cueing, I can pour this hope and this idea of resilience into the folks that I get the opportunity to love on. So let's talk about our plan for today. I want to discuss the basics of pain and its purpose, right? Just get down to the nitty-gritty, the foundation, touch on the outdated and as well as the updated understanding of pain. I want to introduce the idea of the biopsychosocial spiritual model of pain. And then how does this model inform us as yoga instructors, right? Teachers. So a quick note, pain science is a huge topic. So today we will be getting into a little itty bitty dot of it. And so depending on your exposure so far to this topic, there may be a bit of unlearning. So I just want to throw that out there. Also, words that might feel a little sciencey, so just stick with me. I'm hoping to unpack this in a way that really is accessible. And I just invite you to take whatever nuggets are available to you today with just your understanding so far and where you are in the process of kind of taking this in. We all are learning. The learning never ends, right? So every time I come to this topic, I learn from someone new, or I read a new book or a new research article. I'm just seeing things in a new light. So before we dig in, what I'd love to do is just center and settle ourselves for 2 minutes. So wherever you are, on the floor, in a chair, I just invite you to notice the space where your body is connecting to your environment. And that might be your seat in your chair, that might be the feet on the floor. Feel free to soften your gaze, and you could even take a hand to heart, maybe hand to belly, and start to feel your breath. Your body being breathed. Feeling the flow of breath into your body, nourishing you. And that slow, smooth breath out. What I'd like you to do in this settled space is, with a sense of curiosity and compassion, notice where your current beliefs are about your body. Do you see yourself as resilient and adaptable? Capable of living well through challenges and discomfort? Or do you see yourself more broken and fragile? Is there a foundation of fear around movement or alignment? Whatever is coming up for you, wrap it in compassion and tenderness. And begin to bring yourself back to our session. What you believe will influence how you teach, how you cue, right? So it's important to kind of check in with, what is my mindset about my body? So I want to jump into the basics of pain, the purpose of pain. So the number one priority of our nervous system is to protect us, to keep us safe, right? Our brilliant brain and our nervous system want to avoid injury and tissue damage, right? Anything that would prevent us from living life, taking care of things, staying alive, collecting food, right? So when our nervous system detects a threat to our well-being, your well-being, it produces pain to warn you, right? So another way to think of it is, pain is protection. So obviously this is a good thing. We want this response from our body. In fact, there's folks that have a super high pain tolerance, and this ends up not being really great, right? They get into trouble, and actually they tend to not live quite as long. So for example, when I ruptured my tendons in my pinky, believe me, I had plenty of warning signals coming into my body from that experience, to take care of the situation, to stop what I was doing, to notice, and to head on down to the urgent care. So without this warning, without that, right? And let's say I just kept on living life, I open myself up to infection. I open myself up to the fact where I may not be able to take care of my people or make food. So the bottom line, pain is protection. But here's the thing, to discuss and understand the more updated beliefs about pain, we actually need to address the outdated understanding about pain. So the most common belief about pain can be described as, find it and fix it. Okay, so that's just kind of an easy way to think of it. And this idea is that pain resides in the tissues. So pain is that warning, right? That it wants to grab your attention so that you can change your behavior. So if I were to stub my toe, I want to stop what I'm doing and kind of notice. But the old biomedical model says we have pain messages that are coming from that tissue that I just stubbed, right? My toe. So, here's, from this perspective, we find that the problem is in the tissue. So I have a surgery, or I move differently, or I get this therapy or that therapy, and it'll be fixed, okay? But here's the snag. Pain reception doesn't exist, meaning pain does not reside in the tissues because we don't have pain receptors. That's not the way the body works. Now, this does not mean that our biology is not involved in our pain experience. Okay, I don't want there to be any confusion about that, but it does mean that pain is more complex than that. So about now, your mind might be whirling. You may be feeling a little discombobulated, right? Because that is the typical way that we think of pain. And it can be super confusing because we do experience pain in our bodies, right? So the model that I just mentioned almost seems logical. So especially if you are in a season of pain yourself, persistent pain, or someone that you love is walking through persistent pain or discomfort. This can be a challenge to wrap your brain around. But first of all, I want to say you're not alone, right? And second, I want to encourage you that things can change for the better. So please hear me. Okay. So let's unpack this a little bit so we can understand what the heck is actually going on when we're dealing with pain, right? So pain is, this is that updated understanding, right? Pain is constructed in the brain, thus an output of the brain. Okay, so like I said, stick with me here. We're going to unpack this. Remember, pain is a warning from our brain, our nervous system, attempting to keep us safe, right? So the way it does this is by way of nociceptors, and that's a really kind of techie, sciencey word, right? But all it is nerve endings that collect information or data from the outside world that's alerting you to potential danger, threats, right? So that could be extreme temperatures, right? So you put your hand towards a hot stove and you start to get that nociception, right? Which is that danger detection, and you're like, whoosh, like you pull your hand away because I do not want to get burned, right? Pressure, right? If there's pressure against your body, you'll know, you'll feel it. That's those nociceptors, those nerve endings, or chemicals, even within your body. So let's say you have an injury to a joint and it's producing all of those normal natural chemicals within that joint to start the healing process. Your body takes that information through that nociceptive response, right, of your body. Now, here's the thing I want you to understand. Warning signals are just that, warnings. None of these nerves actually transmit pain, but the nociceptive nerve fibers transmit warning signals. So, with that said, what the heck is pain, right? So, let's explain that a bit further. According to the International Association for the Study of Pain, they describe it, they define it as an unpleasant sensory and emotional experience associated with actual or potential tissue damage. And that word potential is pretty important there. So how does this look practically, right? If I'm living life, what does this look like in your body, my body. So let's say you have this beautiful piece of artwork and you want to put it on the wall. So you go grab your nail and you grab your hammer and you put it up there and you start kind of hitting away, and then oops, pa-ching, you hit your hand. That is going to ignite that nervous system input, right? That nociceptive input, and you're going to get lots of warning signals. Your peripheral nervous system, everything outside that spinal cord and brain, right, transmits those warning signals to the brain via those nociceptors. So here's where it gets fun. Is that the right word? Fun, interesting, complex, is that your brilliant brain begins to deliberate as it integrates these warning signals that you've just received from that hitting of your hands, right? The knowledge about your situation, but it also includes your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs, your mindset, your expectations. So your clever brain, within microseconds, you guys, this is why it's so amazing. Like, it's just mind-blowing that our brain, our body does this. It orchestrates a response. So your brain's job is to decide how much threat you're actually facing. If your brain decides your tissues could be harmed, you likely will experience pain as part of this natural protective response, right? So you might shake your hand, you might rub it. That's kind of a natural response, right? It actually does help. We can't get into that, but all of those things. And if you might say, whoa, like me, yeah, that's a pretty bad injury. I need to go seek medical care, right? So you can make all of those decisions. Now, if your brain, for whatever reason, concludes that you are not under threat, or indeed, if something else is going on that's more important, then you will experience less pain, or maybe even no pain. Okay. So let's say you hit your hand and at the same time you look out the window, your neighbor's house is on fire. Most likely, because it's very complex, I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly what's going to happen, but most likely your body's going to say, hey, this pain can wait. I need to go save my neighbor's life, right? So this is not going to be important at the time. So your body is not going to stop you to take care of this first. Something else is more important. So bottom line, pain is an output of your brain. Now, as I say that, sometimes people kind of start digging into this more current understanding of pain, and they're like, well, it's all in my head. No, 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 no. Please don't misunderstand me. That's not what I'm saying, right? Science is clear that pain is complex, and 100% of the time, it is an interconnection of your mind, your body, your emotions, your social support, right? Your perspective, your mindsets. So these signals from your body matter. They matter, but the brain is a critical part of the pain experience. But here's where I want to go from here. We need to move away from the rigid perspective that it's just a biomedical model, right? That find it and fix it. It's a disservice to ourselves and our students to be only focusing on that point of sensation, right? That pain is experienced just in the low back, just in the shoulder, just in the neck, right? We want to expand and bring our understanding to acknowledge our entire being in the experience. Okay. So here we go. So here are some of the factors your brain is taking into consideration as it interprets and deliberates about your potential threat. The input from your body, we already talked about that, right? Context, your thoughts. Do you have a fear-based view of your body, right? Or is there one of resilience, that you are able to heal? So what are your beliefs? Do you believe that your body's fragile? All of those things play into that output of pain. Your perspectives, your expectations, your prior experiences, your future predictions, assigned meaning. This one's a really interesting one, right? So if, let's say you're a guitar player, or you are, as most of you are, a yoga instructor, right? So let's say my pinky has brought in so many useful learning opportunities. So I ruptured the tendons in my pinky, right? So let's say, well, I make my living teaching yoga, and I'm not going to be able to teach. Oh my gosh, I can't put food on the table. I'm not going to be able to pay my rent, right? I'm putting a lot of meaning into that injury, which is going to heighten my pain experience. So another interesting thing that can be in the mix. So bottom line, this makes pain very subjective, right? So let this sink in. All of these reasons that we're talking about, everything that I've mentioned, this is why we can have pain with no tissue damage and tissue damage with no pain. Let that sink in for just a moment, because that's a little bit of a brain teaser, I know. But pain can get very complex, nuanced, and very personal. So you may have heard, so let's talk about a little bit on how this makes sense, right? And these are some common stories you might have heard in your own life. So you may have yourself experienced or had family, friends, yoga students who have gone in for back surgery, right, for their pain. They go through the healing process, they do what they've been told to do, and they still have pain. There's actually a term for it, failed back surgery syndrome, which is sad, or non-specific low back pain. This is a category of folks who have discomfort in their low back. They've gone for the scans, they've gone for the evaluations, and they can't find anything wrong to fix, right? So there's all of these different kind of examples that we can look at to understand this complexity of pain a little bit further. You may have experienced yourself too, as life gets going, get a little bit more overwhelmed, you're kind of living into that more heightened place, right? Anxious, stress levels are on high. And this can, we know through this neuroscience and this newer understanding of pain, that it can have an impact and increase the dial on our aches and pains. So often someone will be in my class and they come in and they're like, oh, my low back, and we'll address it through movement. And occasionally, if it feels appropriate, I'll say, hey, is anything else going on? It's really kind of taking you into that overwhelmed space. If I know them well, if it feels like that's a good kind of question to ask that person, because our emotions and our experiences, all of that impacts how we feel pain. What about phantom limb pain, right? So we're not going to go into the details and the nitty-gritties of that, but I do just want to present these ideas that are fairly common. And again, kind of gives you that confirmation of the complexity of pain. Okay, so this gets us into that idea of acute versus persistent pain, right? So acute pain, such as when I injured my pinky, the messages from acute pain are usually fairly reliable. However, persistent pain that lingers in the tissues. So persistent pain can be defined as anything that's typically 3 months or longer. So the tissues have had that kind of relative decent amount of time to repair and heal, but the pain is still there, right? So that's typically how persistent pain is defined. So that longer lasting, more persistent pain and myofascial discomfort is where things get more complicated, right? More complex, more interesting, because there's times when our brain and our perception of threat and safety, right, going back to just the purpose of pain. So there's times where our brain and that perception, those messages from our brain get off kilter, right? Our brain, in essence, gets really good at firing that pain signal, even when the tissues have healed, even when that time has passed. You're no longer in danger, but the brain has this sort of familiarity with the signaling, right? So it can be kind of defined as the brain has become overly sensitive. And this is where pain, persistent pain specifically, becomes less reliable about telling you about harm and danger, actual. So if you remember that definition we talked about with pain, potential, right? That word potential, pain or threat. Now, fortunately, there are ways to unwind from this misfiring alarm, and yoga is a beautiful way to do that because of that introspective kind of awareness that we build through practicing yoga, and we desensitize that oversensitive pain message cycle. So gradually and gently, we begin to rewire our brain's messaging system to one of safety and less fear, right? Because fear fuels the pain. All those things that we talked about where our brain is taking into consideration, a lot of that is fueled by fear. So we're not going to be able, sadly, to go too far into that bunny trail there. But bottom line, pain science encompasses neuroscience, movement science, spiritual transformation, emotional health, mindset, biomechanics, all of it. This is what makes it an unending topic to learn about. We're just always learning about it. And there's so much more we don't know. But researchers now have designed and created what's called the biopsychosocial spiritual model of pain. So this is how you would look at that updated model of pain. Everything is interconnected. And as yoga instructors, we know this, we feel this, right? The brain is connected to the body 100% of the time. And I love this quote by Neil Pearson. He's a physiotherapist, and in Canada, they say physios. In America, we say physical therapists. So that's how that differentiates. He's also a yoga therapist, but he and his wife created Pain Care Aware, which is a pain educating program specifically for yoga instructors, which is a very cool program. But he has this to say: pain changes everything, and everything changes pain. We know from neuroscience that our brains are changeable, right? So most of you may have heard the term neuroplasticity, right? Our brains are changeable. And if our brain can change, so can pain, right? Because it's an output of the brain. So if you have ever experienced persistent pain or discomfort, you likely have felt in your own body that pain changes. It shifts. One day, I didn't want to go to that quite yet. One day, it feels more intense. It subsides another, right? A big part of this is due to that biopsychosocial spiritual model. So I'll tell you a story how I really embodied this idea for myself. I've had knee pain for years. I played volleyball, down the line. I mentioned the line. I've had MRIs, there's bone on bone. So I've been kind of managing knee pain for quite a while. But But one of the light bulb moments for me was when I was on a beach vacation with some friends, and our group was really excited about hitting the waves with our paddle boards. And we get our stuff and we get to this ledge where we have to kind of jump off of to get to the water. And so everybody's just like running and they just jump off right away, right? And so I get to the ledge and I look over and I'm like, all right, okay, I'm gonna have some pain. That's okay. This is gonna be okay. And so I kind of prep myself and I jump off the ledge and I land. I'm like, there's no pain. Like, what's happening? Like, why isn't there any pain? And so eventually, right, as I started learning more and more about pain and our pain experience and everything that's involved, I'm like, I was resting, I had social engagement, I was having fun. And so all of these different factors was influencing my pain experience in that moment. Now, does that mean I never had pain again? No, no. But with this experience, I began to have a better understanding of my pain and the factors that influence my personal experience, so I can make more intentional choices to dial down my pain, right? So for me, that means when I manage my emotional health, when I get quality sleep. And that takes a lot, you guys. I'm like in bed by 9 o'clock. I'm like, I keep my hips strong, right? In all the different ways. For me, that helps my knee feel its best. Will I likely be managing knee pain for the rest of my life? Yes, but I feel equipped. I feel empowered. I know that things shift. So, wrapping things up, about to land this plane, the wisdom of pain. If we can shift our perspective of pain, instead of something fearful happening to us, to our body providing messages of needing care and support, then we can see the wisdom behind our pain experience and move away from fear and toward hope. Okay. And I hope that is what has helped you. Now, just this last little bit, I know, Lizzie, I saw you pop in. I just want to take 2 more minutes and talk about, how does this impact us as instructors, as yoga instructors? What do we do? How do we take this information, this new, hopefully mind-blowing, from fear towards hope information into our teaching? Now, first, inherently, yoga offers tools already that turn down our dial of pain, right? Breath work, learning to focus our attention, leaning into things like compassion, rest, attending to that inner landscape. So please take a moment, and I want you to just appreciate the gift that you give others by making space for them to practice this beautiful, powerful movement. So even if they don't know why, right, the whys, they keep coming back, they come back because they feel the benefits. Now, we can keep refining our language, refining how we love on our students, right, our family, our friends, with going into that next step of educating ourselves, right? Changing that belief system, what we have going on. So that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing here. You're educating yourself to have that upgraded understanding of pain. What you believe about pain, what you believe about your own body, that understanding will overflow naturally into your students. Okay, so as yoga instructors, we have a powerful opportunity to present movement as something that builds our capacity, right? Our resiliency, giving our students hope in their experience in their experience to find that goodness in their body. Or we can present certain movements or alignments more through the lens of fear, right? Priming students' nervous system towards threat or a need of protection. Now, we know from movement science, pain science, even fascial research, yoga is a safe body weight practice, right? We are resilient, adaptable, and our bodies are designed to move in all sorts of ways. And yes, pain adjusts how we move, and our language can allow our students to be able to make those adjustments for themselves, for understanding and feeling and noticing for themselves. So some cues and language of hope, of resiliency, of adaptation would be capacity, using the word capacity, using the word strength, or even personalize, right? Allowing your students to personalize their shapes, their experience. Some cueing we might want to retire, right? More that lean into that fear space, ideal alignment, protect, right, wrong, right? A big one that over the years has gone through different yoga lineages, protect your knee by keeping your knee directly over your ankle, right? And it turns out our knees are designed to go over our ankles. Watch yourself walk downstairs, right? We are designed to move in that position, that direction. In fact, many rehab plans encourage strength in that direction to feel good in our knees. So helping our students feel successful within the postures by allowing them to personalize the shape. When we use cues like ideal alignment or something is right or wrong, and let's say they don't fit into that mold for whatever reason, because of their current pain experience, maybe because past history of injury, or maybe just their bony morphology, right, is different. If they can't fit into that mold, we're sending a message to them that something's wrong. And if they can't do that, something's wrong with their body. They can't do it right. So again, being informed about the why of our language is so important. Start to pay closer attention to your own cueing, listening to the cueing of the teachers that you learn from. And send it through this lens of pain science, right? Now, the last thing I just want to encourage you to do is normalize pain. We all are going to experience pain one way or another. We're going to have seasons of pain. Like I said, you might be in a season of pain right now, and I'm with you. I understand. But the more hope that we can give and the more we can reduce the fear, the better their experience is going to be. Okay. Now, staying in your lane as a yoga teacher, right? We have a lane. We can't prescribe, we can't diagnose, but it's in our scope to bring hope, right? Through our language, through our cueing, to help our students create a sense of trust in their bodies, a sense of resiliency within their nervous system, right? And it is in our scope to minimize fear and the idea of potential threat. Okay. It's also in our scope to educate on the fundamentals of pain, right? Give resources, inspiration on the complexity of pain, and giving them agency that they can impact their personal experience. Okay, you guys, let's tap in to another 2 minutes of centering, settling. Maybe let us sigh out. That was a lot of information, very heady. And I want you to connect back with your body, your breath, feeling those points of contact that you have with your environment. Maybe that's your tush. Maybe that's the soles of your feet against the floor. You might take one hand to heart, one hand to belly. Coming back into your body, your good, resilient, adaptable body. And following your breath, that nourishing in-breath, and that soothing out-breath. And take a moment to notice, has our time together inspired you to think differently about your body? About your resiliency? About your body's capacity? And if this has stirred up some questions, confusion, maybe even frustration, just notice without getting lost in the weeds. We're all in this learning, growing, ever-changing process of becoming. All right, coming back into our space. When you're ready, and just letting you guys know if you want to go deeper. Like I said, never ending learning on this topic. But I do want to just mention my top 3 resources. Third one is The Wisdom of the Body by Hilary McBride. If you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. Give it a read. She's one of the leaders in embodiment, and she talks a lot about pain. She's had a lot of pain experience in her own life, and she brings that so beautifully into this resource. So highly recommended. The second one, Pain Science, Yoga Life. Great resource. It is technical, give you that warning, but it's from a yoga perspective. And so I really appreciated this book a ton. And then finally, here's my top recommendation, because I have put my heart and soul into this. It's a course called Resilience, Exploring Pain Science Through the Mindset of Christ. So yes, it is faith infused, if that's something that's in your scope and interest. It's a 40-hour continuing education course, so you do get those with this, and that's through Living Soul Institute. So we break down the biopsychosocial model, we look at it from all these different angles, we're in community, and it's a really fantastic course. Last thing, you might want to just hear the languaging and cueing from this pain-informed place, right? Lens. And I do have classes along with Maggie and Kristen. We're co-owners of For the Soul Yoga. So I know Be Yogi members are getting a discount on that as well. So if you're interested, but I just am so grateful for you being here. I love spreading hope around this topic. So my hope and prayer is that this gave you a little dose of that. So thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, Jen, so much. It was a good topic. And I know I have a lot of questions, but we can do that over email. I'm going to bring it to the floor. And to all the attendees right now, if you guys have questions, now is the time. We have a good 10 minutes. So if we can use all that time, let's do it. I did see a few questions that came through earlier in the topic. And Jessica asked, what about pain from something that's not injury based, like headaches? You mentioned a few things like that, but I think if you could kind of talk about that a little bit. And you talked about your pinky, but like headaches and things that you can't necessarily see.
Right, right. There's not like an injury. Yes, and that's such a good question. And I know I've experienced headaches myself. And so it is again, 100% body, mind situation, right? They're always 100% connected. Now, we can unlearn pain, again, just like that pain cycle with something tissue can be perpetuated by that off-kilter alarm, right? So headaches can be the same. We can reduce and unlearn, rewire some of that pain experience. But just like with our tissues, obviously we want to do all of that evaluation, assessments, what else is going on? Like for me, it was my gallbladder, like was causing a ton of problems. So once I started addressing more of those physical connections, my headache situation was improved. So it gets to be a really complex situation, but I do know in the pain science world, headaches have been kind of lumped in with that ability to start to unlearn some of that pain alarm system that's kind of off kilter. Great question.
Yeah, thank you for answering. So a few questions have come in through the chat about cueing and kind of more on the teacher realm using this knowledge.
Yep.
And Tom asks, can you please provide examples of using words like capacity and strength in your yoga teaching and how to personalize cueing?
That's right. Yeah, great question. So when I'm teaching, if something, let's say, so my class this week, we're doing Jiva squat and we like hold it. We're holding it and everybody's, I can hear like this heavy breathing. And I'm like, hey, you guys, celebrate the capacity that you're building in that hip, in your body. So that when I'm not saying all of these words, like I, piece it together, but so in those moments, I'm usually encouraging people with these words of building that adaptation within their body and resiliency. And I usually will replace it with more of those alignment cues, if that makes sense. So I'm not like overwhelming with words, but as I have grown in my teacher role, I've let go of more of the, here's what it's supposed to look like with find these stability, these places of stability and strength, and then celebrate that what you're building. Does that answer? Hopefully that answers his question. I know I can't see the chats.
Yeah, Laura or Tom, if you guys have any follow-up questions, feel free. So this question comes from Monica, and I'm not sure if you can answer this, but we'll ask it. She asked, do most healthcare providers specializing in pain care to use the biopsychosocial spiritual model, or are they at least open to it? Or do they still use mostly the find it and fix it model?
That's such a good question. Sadly, I would say it is not as well understood by the general medical community. And this is why I spend so much time kind of interviewing and finding the people that are aware of this new model. I was in a physical therapist's office not long ago because I have a very small studio. I get to know my people pretty well. And if someone goes to a physical therapist, I'm like, oh, can I go with you? And so I'll try to go with them and see what they're doing. Where's that physical therapist coming from? Because what I do is I make a little black book. I make a little black book and I'm like, okay, this physical therapist knows what they're talking about, right? And this one, not so much. They're still in process of kind of connecting with this newer model. So I would say if you are on the hunt for someone to walk alongside you, or maybe even to have someone in your back pocket that you can give as a resource to your students, do some interviewing. Give them a call. Can I have 5 minutes of your time? What's your stance on pain? Because any professional who understands this model, their language changes. It changes to one of hope instead of watch yourself. Don't, you know what I mean? Like protect, more threat, more fear. It changes.
Thank you. All right.
Yeah.
We have a few more minutes. So Linda, she was like, this is so interesting to me. I've heard many times and was taught that swooping into upward dog can lead to more injury. Would this be another pose where if it feels good, go ahead and do it? And are there examples you can share where we might be overprotective of our students?
That's such a great question. I love that because here's the thing. Swooping into your up dog every now and again with, like maybe your shoulders are stuck up towards your ears, or you see a student in your class who's just like, you look and you're like, oof, like that cannot feel good. But that's what they know, right? They don't understand necessarily some of the more supportive way, let's say, to get into their up dog that's more integrated through their whole body. They're going to be fine, right? Our body weight practice is safe. Now, if they swoop, let's say they go into a class that has 54 vinyasas, and they're swooping with this every time, and they go 4 days a week, right? They might have something pop up. They might have this overuse in this way where the body is not really caring for what they're doing. And so, but in your classes, if someone is having that happen, don't freak out. It's okay. Yeah, they're going to be okay. Help them find that more integrated way of leaning into that position, finding that strength within that very challenging transition, right? It's very challenging. Let's see. Okay, so another pose, I would say that the common pose of your foot cannot be on your knee in tree pose. That is a cue that I feel needs to be retired. You're not pushing on your knee hard enough to cause damage, right? You likely are going to have more impact on your knee walking down a curb, which is natural, normal part of living life, right? Now, do we want to encourage people like jam their foot into their knee? No, but having that nice connection with your knee. I like my foot on my knee during tree pose. I'm like, hey, that knee kind of fits nice and snuggy into my sole of my foot. So that's another cue I would, the other cue that I would look and, feel out for yourself. Elbows into ribs, snug into the ribs for chaturanga. You're asking a lot out of your triceps. But what if someone doesn't have the tricep strength to do that, right? You are going to see more of this, shoulders forward. And again, once, twice in your class, it's not going to be a big deal. But if you allow those elbows to do what they're going to do, to support the shoulders, into their chaturanga, up into their up dog. They're going to find that strength and support, and they're going to feel more engaged in that shape.
Those are good. Someone, as a compliment, she says, Diane says, thank you for opening my mind to different cueing. So
Yeah.
that's a good
Thank you
one.
for being open to it.
Love it.
Sometimes it's hard. But I love that everybody wants to keep learning and growing, and yeah, it's fantastic.
Amazing. All right. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. I'll, make a note of any questions that we weren't able to answer, and I'll send them over to you. But again, I wanted to mention that we have some discounts with some of Jen's programs and things that she's running, and we will put those in the follow-up email with this recording. So you guys will all get that tomorrow, or like mid-afternoon sometime from me. So keep a lookout in your email for the recording. Feel free to share it with people. We love to broaden our community base. So if this is interesting and it's interesting to someone else, send it to them. Again, thank you, Jen, so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
My
really,
pleasure.
really terrific. And we hope to do it again soon.
Sounds great. Thank you. Thank you,
Amazing.
Lizzie. Thanks, everybody.
Alrighty, everyone have a great rest of your day, and we will see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.